Welcome to We Are Libertarians as we come back from a brief hiatus, one on purpose and another one just due to technical difficulties. And guys, I actually got a couple notices. People are actually listening. Someone texted me today and said, "Are you guys actually going to do the show this week?" So here's what happened. 2 weeks ago, we had the national convention, and I was in Las Vegas, and I run the board, and I do all the production, so I can't really trust these two turkeys to do the show on their own and do it right. And then the next week happened, and then I screwed it up. So we had a really excellent show. I would say it was probably our best show to date. And then the file got corrupted, and when I went to open it to edit it, it said, "I'm sorry, there is no file here." I'm like, oh.
So when We Are Libertarians becomes as big as, like, you know, Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh or something, you guys can get the bootleg copy of the lost episode that was the greatest we ever had.
I think there was like 14 minutes of it, and then it just like silence for the rest of the file. And like I'm listening, I'm like, all right, cool. Let's play it on Media Player and VLC. So let's.
Apparently, Spankle. I don't know what that sound was, but it didn't sound like we lose a file.
That was my frustrated sound. So some people yell and scream. I go, "Arr." All right. So last week on the episode you didn't hear, we talked about the primaries. We talked about Ron Paul. They convinced me that Ron Paul might have a shot, and you will never hear that, so I will never admit it again. So we're going to kind of cover some.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we're going to cover some of that again this week, and really there's been a lot of updated information. I mean, like the day after that podcast, Jesse Benton puts his foot in it and says, "Yeah, we're stopping the campaign," and then who knows what's going on? And today they sent out
stuff.
Today they sent out an email blast for Ted Cruz, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's just a Tea Party Republican who's kind of a neocon, isn't he?
Well, yeah, Ron Paul endorsed Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz didn't return the favor.
Right.
But then Ted Cruz's opponent did. I can't remember his name, but he endorsed Ron Paul.
Wow.
So I know the Ron Paul forums are like, well, I don't know who to vote for.
I bet it's on fire.
It's kind of crazy.
Right. So again, just to reintroduce ourselves, I'm Chris Spangle. I'm the executive director of the LPIN. Chris, go ahead.
Chris Galt. And, run the Young Americans for Liberty chapter at IUPUI with Creighton and some other people.
And congratulations on the big award this week.
Yes, we won first place. We won $500 for first place in the country in best activism last month. So with our Occupy the Honor Roll and our Week of Liberty.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
And the charming...
I am Creighton Harrington. I am the state chair for Young Americans for Liberty in Indiana, and I always do this because that's my job, but Young Americans for Liberty and Libertarian Party are not affiliated with each other.
For tax purposes.
For tax purposes and all that jazz.
But secretly we're in love.
To any of those who don't like our organizations,
it's
you can't get us on that because I said something.
It's like Romeo and Juliet. It's a love that can never be. Never mind.
I'm not going to kill myself.
Yeah. So what's on tap this week, Creighton?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, the Ron Paul campaign has come out and said that they're not going to spend any more money on primary states, and of course, the media has jumped on it as him basically saying he's quitting, and I don't think he's quitting. I think if you just go upon what he said, he's not done campaigning. He's just not campaigning in states that have primaries like normal go to the polling booth primaries. He's spending it on delegate campaigns and caucus states and getting more delegates. State conventions and all that kind of stuff. Which, I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, well, why didn't he come out with this sooner? It's like after the first few weeks, the delegates were basically taking over all these caucus states. Kind of been like,
I'll tell you why. Because you can't get people, even your most ardent supporters, if you're not running to win a race, then people don't want to back a loser. I mean, people don't want to go and work for a candidate that is not trying to win a race.
But au contraire, Mr. Spangle.
Well, what are you about to release the hounds?
Release the hounds. I would say that, and this is something that Jack Hunter, who is one of his press guys,
the Southern Avenger,
he's a pretty cool guy. I met him a few times. But
name dropper.
Yeah. But he makes a good point, and the whole idea of not backing the loser, quote quote, and not spending money in primary states is basically conceding defeat because then you can't win the election and therefore you're not running, and all this kind of stuff is basically looking at the whole thing through the perspective of a horse race. And Jack Hunter's arguing essentially that the mainstream media has no idea how to cover a presidential campaign like Ron Paul's because he's trying to do so much more than just win the presidency. So him not spending money on primary states anymore is to them conceding defeat because they only see the possible reasons he would ever run is to win. And if he's not spending money to win, then he's just stupid. But if you look at it from the perspective of, like, I'd say anyone in the movement, there is so much more to gain than just, winning the presidential race. And this has been proven twice now by, at least halfway proven, by Ron Paul candidates who have won their primaries. In Kentucky, Thomas Massey won his primary, and he's going up to the general to be a United States congressman. And then in Minnesota, the guy's name escapes me, but he won the primary for Senate, and he's going to the general. And those are two candidates that Ron Paul's endorsed, and the Young Americans for Liberty PAC has also endorsed. There's two more left, Justin Amash, who's already a congressman, and there's another guy, and the name
Senate in New Mexico. His name's Swords.
Yeah, I don't remember. You can look it up, I guess.
Swords. I think it's Swords.
Is that how you say it? Like swords in the stone?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know Justin Amash. He's already a congressman. He's going to get reelected, and I've heard things about how his primaries, his district redistricting in Michigan has kind of maybe he might be not as safe because last year he was just like he demolished the guy in the general. But this year it could be a little bit different because I guess his district was super Republican, and they split up that district to get some of those Republican votes into other districts as well. And now Amash's seat is not so safe. Mm-hmm. But either way, he's already in Congress. So I mean that's just a perfect example. There's four people two of which have already won their primaries in the Republican Party, and this is all basically a result. I mean.
But you're saying those people didn't raise money, they didn't run campaigns, they didn't canvass, they didn't buy yard signs?
But
that's what I'm saying.
The point is that these people are very publicly Ron Paul people, and yet I'm fairly certain they demolished all their competition. And Minnesota, of course, is a caucus state, so that means that they were elected. He won the primary via the state convention. I'm fairly certain, and that was all. I mean, Ron Paul got 12 out of 13 delegates out of the state convention because they would have had all 13, but one of them conceded just so that one Michelle Bachmann delegate could go through. So
Michelle Bachmann,
yeah, Michelle Bachmann
Who
delegate.
Is that?
So one of the Ron Paul people
eyes,
conceded their seat to
Minnesota.
a delegate who's going to vote for Michelle Bachmann.
Hater.
If that, I don't know what the heck's going on there. But my point is that if you look at it through the perspective of a horse race, then it's all over. If you look at it from the perspective of trying to do something like Pat Robertson did with the evangelical right earlier in the 90s, which basically kind of, the only reason the Republican Party is considered the religious party is because of the Pat Robertson campaign earlier in the 90s. I mean, if you look at it through that perspective, there's a lot of work left to be done and a lot more, I'd say, victory for Ron Paul than I think Mitt Romney's going to have.
All right, so it sounds like you're kind of backing off of last week's podcast where you guys are trying to convince me that Ron Paul's going to be the presidential nominee.
I wouldn't. I'm still not 100% on whether or not he's completely out of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that Rule 36 that Chris mentioned is
Which
still on the books.
Any idea what without your notes in front of you? Can you pull up your notes from last week? All right.
You want Rule 36?
Rule 36. I mean, because let's talk about some of the delegate stuff because I have...
It's Rule 38.
Rule 38. I have been mocked and yelled at by both you and the listeners saying, yeah, I got so many, why do you hate Ron Paul, man? And I always preface everything saying, listen, I never said that. I'm here because of Ron Paul. I love Ron Paul. I love his message. I just don't think he's going to be the Republican presidential nominee because I don't think the Republican dirty tricks know any boundaries. I mean,
Jesse Benton's done a few things this month that I'm not very happy with.
Yeah,
but
to say the least.
Do you guys know his title? Isn't it campaign manager?
Son-in-law. I think that's his official
I think
title.
it's his nephew. I think he's Ron Paul's nephew.
I thought he was married to a daughter.
Okay. Well, I thought he was campaign manager.
Yeah.
Well, I just got an email a couple days ago that said John Tate was his new campaign manager. So I don't know what's going on there, but
I have heard
Benton in Q&A said that there's no chance of Ron Paul ever helping or endorsing Gary Johnson this month.
He
said that.
Stunning, because Gary Johnson is...
It is, because Ron Paul's always ran a principle. It's all about principles. It's not about party.
Gary Johnson endorsed him in 2008. Gary Johnson, when he switched to the Libertarian Party to run for our presidential nomination...
His website says Gary Johnson, said, Ron Paul,
support
the
Ron,
movement.
Right, support Ron Paul. And he said it at the national convention. Support Ron Paul. And then if it doesn't work out, and I don't think it's going to work out, then come support me. He has been asking, he's a presidential candidate, potential opponent of Ron Paul, saying support my opponent.
He's polling at 7% in New Hampshire.
Yeah, and it's just as a Gary Johnson supporter first, and then a Ron Paul supporter second, to be totally frank with you, that really ticks me off. What? Yeah. What is it?
I don't know. I don't really think that all this stuff is from Ron Paul's mouth. I think this is from
I will tell you what I have heard. I have heard rumors, and these are unsubstantiated rumors and gossip. There is a sense within the campaign that it is family versus campaign staff. That it is the Guy Cecil, Tate, and those guys sort of looking at the family, which is Ron, Rand, and Jesse Benton, and saying, is there some sort of deal here for Rand? And I think that that's sort of the worst kept secret in politics. We all know that whatever Ron Paul is going to do, he is not going to damage his son's political future, his other son's political future, and his legacy, because that's the first I'd ever really thought about it. Thinking of the Ron Paul movement as sort of a religious right type movement within the party to try and flex libertarian muscle. And if he were to endorse Gary Johnson, then, I've talked to my grandmother on Mother's Day, and she's like, all right, this libertarian thing, you guys have some good candidates, but it's gone too far. You're going to get Barack Obama elected. I'm like, I love you. I burst out laughing when she said it's gone too far. And she's like, I'm not being funny. This is serious. It's gone too far. I'm like, all right, calm down. You have 5 departments you're going to, so it bothers me that I just look at the campaign over the last few weeks, and they're starting to play the political game and show the political strategist that the Paul family is. Because let's be honest, creating C4L, creating YAL,
he didn't create YAL.
He
helped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he gave it his blessing.
Right. to say that he didn't have a hand in creating YL is just not.
I mean, his youth coordinator Jeff Frazee made it. So,
right.
Which is Ron Paul's.
These are very shrewd political moves. Bringing pork back to a district in Texas, at a pretty alarming rate. These are things to help keep him in Congress. And trying to grow political power is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, why wouldn't you want political power if you're a libertarian? It's just how you use the political power, what you use it on, and how you get it. It's how you play the game and what you use the power for. And I think some of his true believers are starting to see that they are playing the game, and it's sort of disheartening. And I think
I never looked at it as, Ron Paul is not only just has good position on issues, he's also a moral candidate that does not play. I always saw him as being a really shrewd politician.
Right.
I just always respected what he voted for. Right. I mean, I always looked at how he voted, and he always voted really well. The whole pork thing isn't a huge issue to me, but I don't want to go into it, but
The one-line response to bringing back a lot of pork to his district is that if he didn't bring pork back to his district, then the executive branch would
that money's already in here. He's essentially saying the money's already in taxes. It's going to be spent. It's whether or not Congress apportions it or the president apportions it.
And he voted against the appropriations bills, so that's his defense on it. I mean, are you guys? You guys are more hardcore Ron Paul supporters than I probably am. You guys are P1s. I mean, what are you thinking about the campaign at this point? P1s is a radio term. Like, that's your position one. That's your diehard supporter.
Going to the second thing that Benton did that I didn't like this month. When they announced that he was going to suspend spending money in future primaries, Benton released like a 3-page letter on Ron Paul's website that said it was just all, thank you, blah, 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 blah. And it had one tiny little paragraph in it, and I can't quote it because I don't have it, but it said, we know that Mitt Romney will be the eventual nominee, and blah, blah, blah. And then it went on to, be courteous in your state conventions and
right,
keep
because
fighting. But he threw that Mitt Romney is the nominee in there, and
people like yourselves have been sitting here with, fighting me 1 week ago, fighting me, saying, no, there is still a chance. He can still be the nominee.
And then right after they send that letter, they call me and ask for money. They're like, it's the Rise for Liberty money bomb. Help Ron Paul. And I'm like, you just told me that Romney's the nominee.
The thing is, a lot of people have been like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Because, of course, one of the things we've made a point of is that Ron Paul people have been pretty shrewd on understanding the laws, understanding the Republican Party rules and all this kind of stuff. And using the very own rules, it's still likely. It's not likely. It's still
you guys
possible.
want me to review what I talked about last week?
Yeah, why don't you review
Feel free to jump in whenever. I've got my notes here, so I'll just go through it, and you guys can jump in, all right? So, first point, Youth for Ron Paul exceeded 110,000 members. It was over 115 now, maybe. I don't know, 115,000 college-aged Ron Paul supporters that are registered on his website. His delegate plan. So we'll talk about the states that have had their state conventions. The first one is Maine. Romney won the straw poll in Maine, and Paul won 23 out of 24 delegates at the convention. And that straw poll, I mean the primary, because the primary does nothing but bind some delegates to you, right?
Okay.
All right, so the next state, Nevada, Romney won the primary. Paul won 22 out of 28 delegates. The next state was Massachusetts. Romney won the primary.
Or Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Okay. Romney won. Romney won the primary. Paul won 16 out of 19 delegates. The next state was Iowa. I was pronunciating so you wouldn't make fun of me.
How long have you been awake?
Santorum won the primary in Iowa. As we all remember, it was like within 5 votes.
Romney and then
Romney won and then Santorum won. Paul won the delegates. He won all 13. And when we recorded last week's, their convention hadn't happened. I'm not sure when Iowa's is. But they still have a few more to do at their convention.
I know the Indiana Ron Paul people are gearing up for Indiana's convention in early June. Or is it? Yeah, June.
Yep. Louisiana, Santorum won the primary. Paul won all 46 delegates, which is huge. Minnesota, which there was news on last week, but he had already had 21 out of 25, and he won
12 out of 13. He would have had He would have had all 13, but one of them conceded to a Michelle Bachmann delegate.
So he won 23. He won 23 out of 28,
something like that.
23 out of 28,
and he would have had Minnesota. And I don't know what the deal is with that Bachmann thing. I think that's just like a ruse.
I don't know. And then the last one I have is Missouri. Santorum won the primary, and Paul has won 20 out of 40 so far, and there's 12 more to go. So, and Colorado. Paul won Colorado 15-14-7.
So,
Romney,
what is the end game? Do you think that they go to the national? I mean, well, a week ago you guys were saying that there's no way that you look at this and there's definitely going to be a floor fight and there's a possibility he could become the nominee.
Right.
At this point,
definitely,
with all that's gone on over the last week with the campaign, are you guys sort of walking that back? Are you guys kind of saying, I'm feeling less confident that they're actually going to go through the strategy, or that they're going to try to make him the nominee, or are they going to go for a lesser goal, which is trying to flex libertarian muscle within the party and punish them a little bit, make it rough for them, send a message, and then Romney is the nominee.
They're still going for Ron Paul to be the nominee. I mean, that's goal number one.
The delegates are, and
Yes.
and there's a bit of a news thing that happened is Massachusetts, I think it was, is trying to force an affidavit onto the delegates that Ron Paul won, saying that they must vote for Romney, and I guess the Ron Paul legal team has okayed a pursuance of a lawsuit against the Massachusetts Republican Party because it's illegal to force any delegate to vote for anybody. So to sign that affidavit and force them to do it. No, that's not true. They said don't.
Let me tell you something.
No, time out. I want to restate what I said.
Okay.
Massachusetts affidavit to vote, and they were asking about it, and I guess it's illegal to force them to vote for anybody. The lawsuits in Oklahoma, where I guess Oklahoma Republican Party did some shady stuff and basically ruined and made them do their convention outside, and it was a different one and just a whole bunch of stuff. And Ron Paul's legal team has okayed the pursuance of that lawsuit. So the Oklahoma lawsuit's okayed by the Ron Paul legal defense team. The Massachusetts thing they're saying is illegal, but they're trying to force an affidavit on Ron Paul delegates in Massachusetts, which I don't know if they've signed them or what, but
as someone, the joke about being a cat herder, as someone who tries to tell libertarians what to do for a living, I've got like 92 scratches from the last 3 days. That's probably not going to work out. I'm sure they'll. Good luck with that, guys.
But one of the points Chris called me last week was that there is a rule on the Republican Party's books that says essentially you can't force anyone to vote for any candidate because you can't bind
Rule
them.
number 38. No delegate or alternate delegate shall be bound by any attempt of any state or congressional district to impose the unit rule, when the unit rule is you have to vote for a specific candidate. So the question is if Ron Paul delegates can apply that rule at the state convention. Because think about it like this. Romney won every delegate in Florida. He won all 55, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if Ron Paul people went to the state convention and they are the Romney delegates, if the Paul supporters are the Romney delegates, they're bound to vote for Mitt Romney by their state's rules, by Florida's rules. But when they get to the convention, if they invoke Rule 38, they can vote for whoever they want. They're not bound to Mitt Romney. So if they're Ron Paul people that Romney has those 55 delegates for, then they can vote for Paul. So Romney is paying like tons of money to find out who his delegates support.
Right.
Because he has no idea. He didn't plan on having to even do that. He just thought he would get everybody out and win.
And it was an important point to note that this isn't just, theory or something. In 2008, an Idaho delegate did not want to vote for McCain. He was bound to vote for McCain by the rules, but he wanted to vote for Romney.
Right.
He did not, and he tried to vote for Romney, and they said, no, you have to vote for McCain. Well, he sued him, and the Republican National Committee's lawyer, like that legal team, has a statement, and I don't know, I can't quote it exactly, but it goes pretty much, and this is totally what they're trying to say, I just don't know the exact quote, is that there is to be no binding of delegates to vote for any person. They can't do it. So that McCain, that guy ended up voting for Romney. So the Republican National Committee's legal team has basically confirmed in 2008. They confirmed that the Rule 38, the unit rule, is a no-go. You cannot force a delegate to vote for anybody. So that is the Republican National Committee's legal team has already confirmed that. It's just a matter of whether or not they'll confirm it again, because I don't trust them to just go back on what they said in 2008. But
all right, gun to your head. Who is the presidential nominee in November?
Gun to my head?
For the Republican Party. You have to choose.
I really don't know.
Romney or Paul? Nope, there's a gun to your head. You got to choose.
Well, if there's a gun to my head, I'm saying Ron Paul.
Yeah.
And do you
'Cause
with
you
your
can't
heart or
lose-
your head?
What?
With your heart or your head
Well,
are you saying that?
He's not going to shoot me until after it happens. So.
You're right. You've got like a 4-month head start. So,
And I think the return on investment's a little better for Ron Paul if I go bet on whatever that E-Trade. I don't know.
Yeah.
as long as you're
If
not,
I put $1 down, I win 1,000.
as long as you're not putting it on a Facebook IPO. So,
Yeah, right.
all right.
I really don't know what to make of what that whole campaign did. I mean, you could have the conspiracy thing where they're maybe just trying to throw the Republican Party off Ron Paul's back, and they're still going to do the same stuff, but now the Republican Party will kind of ease off a little bit. You could say that Jesse Benton went rogue. You could say a lot of things. I really don't know what to make of it. I do not think that Ron Paul is done campaigning.
A campaign manager, those press, those not, I guess they're not press releases. This might have been a press release, but when you send out an email blast, when you're at that level, you don't send anything out just willy-nilly. Somebody wrote that and approved that. I mean, I doubt Ron Paul doesn't seem to be a micromanager, so I doubt he sat and approved all that. But still, that's something that he might have just because that's sort of, you're taking a calculated risk by saying some of the things that Jesse Benton has said this week. You have a passionate fan base that, let's say Rachel Maddow says something bad about Ron Paul on her TV show. For the next 4 weeks, the poor woman has, it's misery. It's like, you must die. We need to support Ron Paul. I mean, you don't put statements out like that without the campaign seriously thinking that through. And I truly believe that what is happening is they are trying to soften their supporters to get them to accept the fact that he's probably not going to be the nominee this year, and they're trying to soften their stance within the Republican establishment to make sure that Rand Paul has a future. I mean, right or wrong, I'm not placing a judgment on any of that. I think that that's sort of what's going on. I think the fact that they unequivocally said that they're not going to support Gary Johnson, and they haven't really walked that back, is a message to the establishment that we're not going to go third party. We're not going to support third party this year like we did in 2008. We're going to stay in the Republican Party and support your candidates, even if we don't like it. That's sort of, in my mostly professional opinion, I think that's sort of where they're heading. I think they're trying to become power players in the Republican Party.
And to an extent, I don't really have a super disagreement with that. I think that is a pretty. I mean, I would really prefer that Ron Paul basically took over the Republican Party. I mean, that would be very nice. And let's just
That would be very nice.
I think that would be terrible. I think you should give that
but
I think that's a dumb idea.
I mean, I can disagree with whether or not I think that, this whole thing is going to work, whether or not they think that being all lovey-dovey to the higher-ups is going to work, because I don't think it's going to work. I don't think that they're going to come around, ever. I think the only thing that's going to be able to change the positions of the Republican Party is, efforts like that we've had with the Ron Paul campaign and future things similar, and basically just old people just start dying, and they can't vote anymore. So I feel like that. I don't think that if Ron Paul's team thinks they can just kind of be nice to the establishment Republican Party, that it's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they'll just be like, oh, Ron Paul, we're glad to have your support, but
that's why I look at this entire thing as trying to take over the Republican Party as complete folly. It's a complete waste of time.
I don't think it's folly. I think it's folly if they're going to try and basically get those who are in the Republican Party to kind of get on board. That's stupid, because I don't think that's going to happen. But if we can get, if Ron Paul's idea is basically to start, some momentum for future people to build on, that basically replaces their own people into that party. Now that is something I think could show fruition, has potential. Trying to get the people that are already there to get on board with the Ron Paul kind of stuff, that's not going to happen. That's a dumb policy.
The way that the Republican Party is run it's a monolithic. It is not a coalition party like the Democrats or, even the Libertarians to some extent are a coalition party of philosophical libertarian philosophies that come together to support libertarian candidates. Democrats are special interest groups that come together and get stuff when their politicians get elected. And our cell phones are going crazy today. Sorry about that, audience. The Republicans, though, you get in line, and if you fall out of line, if you dare to support someone other than the Republican, Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not talk about another Republican. Libertarians, even libertarian Republicans, are not the kind that are... I think that if the Paul campaign thinks that they have a lot of passionate supporters, but I think that passion only goes so far just because I know the libertarian mentality well. They're very independent, thinking, and they're not going to be told what to do for very long. I think that if the Paul campaign thinks that they are going to try and build a movement within the Republican Party, I don't think it works. I just because of the nature of libertarians, we're just too independent-minded. We don't want to follow a leader. It's abhorrent to our nature. The cult of personality. The first cult of personality in libertarian history is Ron Paul.
Well,
and I think that only goes so far.
I don't necessarily mean like a Ron Paul movement that will continue into the future. I mean a movement based upon these ideas, and I think I don't know. I think I think we could agree that there's been paradigm shifts within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Excluding libertarians, just look at it as the party in general. It's happened, and there's no reason to assume that the next generation of libertarians might be a little bit more politically savvy. That may be wishful thinking, but I mean, like he said earlier, there's 100 and something thousand just Youth for Ron Paul members. I mean, his probably his largest base is young people. So as yes, I would be very, very optimistic to say that every single one of them would emerge and become political players, and they would learn the skills and the tactics and all that crap, and then they'd continue on with the right ideas. Yes, that's very optimistic. It probably won't happen smoothly, but nevertheless, you have a very, very, very large group of people with libertarian values that are young and that are going to be in the political world for a long time, long after and this is just me. Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing we're hitting as far as all this is just like baby boomers. I think that's what it is.
I mean, there are a lot of baby boomer Republicans like Karl Rove who were diehard Goldwater supporters in college,
and that's my point.
And that's one of
that will happen.
That's one of the
people.
biggest worries that I have for the youth, the Ron Paul youth, is that they spend all their time in the Republican Party, and the power and the money in that party seduces them, and that they forget about their principles in an effort to gain political power. Political power, like I said earlier, is important to build, but it's how you build it that matters, and how you use it that matters more.
Well, and to be fair, Karl Rove and the Goldwater movement were never very, they did not agree with Ron Paul on foreign policy. Goldwater was very hawkish, and to that extent, I think they've pretty much held that value throughout their careers. Ron Paul's movement is particularly less hawkish,
a little more economic,
but a lot of people are non-interventionists, and I think that's a difference that I don't know. Karl Rove, I think one of the biggest things that I disagree with on mainstream Republicans, pretty much over everything else. Yes, they all spend a lot and all this stuff, but I think it's just their stubbornness for a Cold War style mentality on foreign policy. That gets under my skin the most, but that mentality is left. They've never said anything different throughout their entire time. They've always been that way. Karl Rove's always been the guy who said we got to go get the commies. Well, the commies are gone. Now we got to go get the terrorists. That's just been their thing. It'll be interesting to see what these Ron Paul kind of people, when they start maturing into the political world, whether or not they'll go back on that foreign policy thing and become more of a Karl Rove. But
do they sacrifice the foreign policy issues for in exchange for the Fed? Well, you guys give us the conservatives say you give us a little bit on the foreign policy, and then we'll start to end the Fed. Take steps to end the Fed. I mean. Politics is compromise, and any person that gets involved in politics, you just have to know where your line is, and you have to know where you're going to say no. And politics is a constant test of integrity. if you work in politics, it's almost a daily test of your integrity. How are you going to treat this person who hates you because you have a letter next to your name? And heck, even people in your own party that treat you badly. How are you going to treat those people? How are you going to compromise to get what you need and what you want in exchange for a little more political power? I mean, politics is about compromise, and if you're going to get involved in politics in a serious way or even in a small way, you've got to know the line. At what point will these are my values, and I'm just not going to compromise them. And I think that's probably the most important thing that I think Youth for Ron Paul, they need to understand that. What's your line?
Absolutely. That is the biggest danger to this whole thing, is basically getting entrenched and becoming the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I think with the way people are now in the movement, that isn't likely a possibility at this moment. But yes, as time goes on, the temptations are there. The stuff happens, and it'll be a test. But I feel like we're in the first act of the Ron Paul movement right now, of like a 5-act play. There's a lot of stuff to come, and we have to kind of take it as it comes. We can prepare mentally for the fact that there are going to be a lot of people that compromise their principles, because every movement has them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of people that don't. There's going to be a lot of people that it's going to happen, and you have to prepare yourself mentally. You have to stay the course and all this kind of stuff. But that's for the future. And right now, I don't know. I see the biggest thing that Ron Paul people can do right now is basically just get louder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I hope this whole thing with Jesse Benton didn't.
Which leads to the third thing Jesse Benton did that I didn't like.
I'm sorry.
Third and final
I'm sorry.
thing.
Who are you?
I was just waiting for you guys.
Can you reintroduce yourself, Chris Colton?
So,
could you keep it down over there, buddy?
The third thing he did, besides tell everyone that there's no chance of helping Garrett Johnson and demoralizing thousands of Ron Paul supporters, telling them that Romney was the nominee, the third thing he did was he said that Ron Paul supporters need to be more respectful at the state conventions.
And I can agree to that to an extent.
Yeah, I can too.
How respectful were they to you in 2008?
There's a difference.
No,
okay,
there's not a difference.
No. Let me finish. Can I finish? There is a difference. There is what happened in 2008. I was a reporter, so it didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it happen to 300 Ron Paul delegates in 2008. It was very professional the way that they disenfranchised those voters. It was using the rules. There are some Ron Paul supporters that think that the best way to get Ron Paul elected is to bring as much attention to Ron Paul as possible by acting like a fool. And you know who I'm talking about. That sort of angry, amped up, intense mentality that some people will bring to, and every side has them. It's just, Benton asked their supporters to be a little more respectful. Yeah, don't not fight. Fight for what you believe in. Use the rules, but be professional about it. Don't get into fistfights with people.
Yeah, and
I
and
haven't heard of any Ron Paul supporters getting in fistfights.
Well, I heard Mitt Romney people tried to fight him somewhere.
I hear Mitt Romney people are bad.
Yeah,
right.
But
am I right, guys?
The point I'm trying to say is that you have to pick your battles. Yes, the Republican Party sucks. Everyone knows that.
I'm not saying
Republican
don't be
Party
respectful.
sucks.
I'm just saying
But
sometimes you have to be loud. You have to do that.
You do have to
when
be
they're
loud
trying.
stuff. You do.
I watched I don't even remember what convention it was,
if I
but they
see
were
one-
trying to co-opt the whole thing because everyone there was a Ron Paul person.
If I see
so they
one-
just ignored all their motions. You can't just let them do that.
That's
You
it,
have
yeah.
to. You have to get.
Yes, but I'm not. I'm telling
And
you.
I mean, if
with
Mitt Romney comes on stage and everyone in there's a Ron Paul supporter, I'm booing too.
I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily think Jesse
you don't get
Benton,
any of my respect.
I don't think Jesse Benton meant that when they're breaking rules and ignoring motions to be quiet about it. I don't necessarily think that's what he meant by be respectful.
What they're saying is, you're the guy in the Guy Fawkes mask and the dirty Ron Paul T-shirt, and you and your buddy are carrying a banner in front of the podium in the middle of the convention, Stop it.
But
You're
that
running
doesn't
around
happen.
with the 9/11 truth.
Yes,
not
it
happening.
happened at the
And-
National Libertarian
and-
Convention. I promise. I've seen
You're
it.
running around with
that's the
9/11
libertarians. They're
truth
crazy.
bumper stickers all over your
Yeah,
shirts.
libertarians are crazy.
I guarantee you.
We're not
that-
the one who put Sarah
I
Palin up
guarantee.
as
You know
for
what?
vice
They haven't.
president.
They haven't shown it, but I guarantee you, there's been people going to these Ron Paul things wearing 9/11 truth shirts and all this kind of crap.
And what? So what?
No. The thing is that kind of crap just makes the movement look stupid.
And if we win, it doesn't matter.
It does matter to an extent.
It's how you play the game, buddy.
Because there's a difference.
I understand this.
No, there is a difference between.
And there's
what you're
look
trying
There's
at
a
you.
difference between everybody. Then you're just. Let's all the Ron Paul people should just go in and say, "I'm a Mitt Romney person."
No,
So,
that's not what we're saying at all.
I'm a Mitt Romney person. I supported Mitt Romney. I'm a Republican. Blah blah
you
blah blah blah.
are in
I'm going to
so-
sit there and fold my hands and be quiet and.
You are in
listen to-
so
Who said anything about
you are in
folding your hands
so
and be
much
quiet?
trouble when you get married because you don't listen.
I do listen.
Your poor girlfriend. We're going to have her
All right,
on the show
so-
someday and interview about how you don't listen. We are saying that you know that they exist. They're in your group.
And
The
they're
people-
not delegates,
the
though. Those
people-
kinds of
but
people don't
the
go
people,
through the process.
But that's maybe not in Indiana because Midwesterners are really nice. Let's talk about Nevada or Oregon, where these libertarians
right.
show up and they're just intense personalities.
Well,
you
I've
cannot
been-
deny that our movement
he was
has some intense
referring.
people.
He was referring to the news headlines that said Ron Paul supporters aggressively take over the convention and steal delegates and are.
Right.
That's what he was referring to,
Now,
which
the-
I think is
The thing
stretching
is-
the truth.
But the thing is,
and
just
it's
to
not
say,
true.
Just to say, be respectful. I mean, you can say be respectful when people have been respectful.
But,
you
to bring that up is to infer that we haven't been respectful.
there
Why are
have
you
been
yelling at
times-
us right
I'm
now?
not yelling.
You're yelling. You're
I'm
being
not yelling.
disrespectful by yelling at us.
Okay.
The thing is, the point is not so much to be like when they're breaking rules, you be quiet about it. The point is that you don't have to go into the convention screaming and all this kind of stuff. Yes, the Republican Party people have been doing some shady crap. They've been saying, "Oh, well, we can't pay the rent because a bunch of Ron Paul people are here." I mean, they've tried to make the leap saying that because a lot of the delegates are Ron Paul people, then Ron Paul needs to pay the rent.
I'm not-
Stupid stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah, that stuff deserves boos and heckles. But to go in there with the mentality of we're going to be like Tony Montana and we're just going to start blowing stuff up until we get our
I don't
way.
think anyone has that mentality.
I totally disagree. You don't. I mean, it happens on every side, so it's not just a libertarian thing. You don't think that there are people going to these conventions who are like, man, they're going to screw with us, so we're going to go in there and give them a taste of their own mess. They go.
I went to CPAC.
They go in angry.
I went to CPAC.
Right.
Dick Cheney came on after Rand Paul, so we were all in there.
Right.
And no, we didn't stand up and start throwing tomatoes at him.
Someone
we
screamed,
stood up
"War
and we
criminal."
left. Yeah, somebody did.
Right.
But not as a
Everyone
group.
cheered.
One person
That's
did.
the person we're talking about.
Everyone cheered.
The one idiot makes the entire movement look bad, and you know there are people that are those intense personalities that just are going to get up in people's
But they're going
face.
to do it if Jesse Benton says be respectful or not. So it was just like
Yeah, but
he
at
was
least-
basically,
at
in my
least-
opinion, he was saying, "You know what, media, you are right. We're being disrespectful.
All right.
I'm going to
That's-
tell
all
everybody
right.
to
That's
be
a
respectful."
fair point.
Perhaps
I
right.
think he admitted
perhaps
defeat.
what
Or he
he's
admitted
saying
guilt.
is perhaps what he's doing is when the delegates continue being unruly, he can look back and say, well, I mean, the campaign told him to chill out. So, I mean, there's a number of ways it could go about it.
But again, to defend Chris, actually, for the first time in the history of the podcast, Republicans are as bad as Democrats when it comes, and Libertarians sometimes aren't any better. You have to judge an individual by their own behavior and not judge on the collective basis. What one idiot in a crowd does not mean that every person who believes in that philosophy or is in that political party is that way. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, just because some people support Sarah Palin, it doesn't mean that everybody in the Republican Party supports Sarah Palin.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
believe and don't read newspapers.
That definitely matters for libertarians. The LP, I mean. Like, there are some crazy libertarians that call themselves libertarians, but not every libertarian believes that communism should rule in the...
I'm down with it. Like, as long
I'm just saying.
there are socialist libertarians. There, listen,
No,
and that's what this is the biggest beef that I have with our movement. Nobody gives people in our own movement any slack. Give people the benefit of the doubt that just because there was one jerk in that crowd, it doesn't mean that everybody at that in that delegation was being a jerk.
Right.
Let's use our minds. Let's judge on an individual basis. And I think that goes to your point, which is why call out every Ron Paul supporter when it was just one or two? But you can't deny that those people don't exist because there are people on our side, on their side, on every side. It's just politics is the people business. So sometimes you're going to attract weirdos.
Well, since we're talking about the election,
okay.
Does anybody else have an idiot of the week? Because I do.
No. We'd already 15 minutes left.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, I wanted to bring it up now because it really relates. So you can't commit a felony and run for president. You can't have a felony and run for president.
I think you can, can't you?
You can. It's not in the Constitution, but the state laws, you can't be on the ballot.
Okay.
In states, if you have a felony
in
for
some
president.
in some states,
In
in
most
Indiana,
states.
you can be a felon and run for any federal office.
All right. Well, in most states, anyway.
Yeah, it's job training to be a felon.
Did
and
either
run
of you
for
hear
office.
what happened in Wisconsin?
No, I did not.
All right. You didn't either?
Wait, Wisconsin.
All right. So Mitt Romney and his son Ryan were in a sub shop, and they told all kinds of people, come in, we'll give you a free sandwich, and you go vote for Mitt Romney during the primary.
Okay.
So they all come in, and there's a video of Romney and Ryan just handing people free sandwiches, and Romney's saying, "Go vote for me. Go vote for me. Go vote for me. If you want another sandwich, there's more free sandwiches back here." You know what I'm saying?
I haven't heard the story, but I think I know where you're going.
All right. Well, in the state law, Wisconsin state law, any individual who offers, gives, lends, or promises to give or lend, or endeavors to procure anything of value, with the purpose of either encouraging or discouraging voters from either going to the polls or voting, has gone against the law, and it's a Class 1 felony.
Can a state have a felony level offense?
What?
Can a state have a felony level offense? I thought that was a federal.
No, that exists under state and federal law.
And anything of value is an item that exceeds $1 in value. And the subs were $4.99 to $6.99, depending on the sub.
Wow.
So
that's a good price.
He said, quote, "So bring your friends to the polls, get out and vote, and if you want another sandwich, there are more in the back here." His campaign paid for the sandwiches and gave them to people to go vote for him. So the Democrat Party of Wisconsin has already filed a complaint with the Wisconsin's Government Accountability Board, which will decide if anything comes of this filing. But election bribery is a Class 1 felony.
It's not gonna.
Listen, this is why 70% of our countrymen do not vote. This is the sort of ridiculous BS that nobody cares about, and it's why people care more about Dancing with the Stars, and I don't blame them. That is not giving a crap about politics when you have, this is the way that you want to try and win a campaign. This is why people don't care about politics. It's a totally rational reaction to an irrational system. It's like all this residency stuff. There's one candidate who had legitimate residency issues. He did not win his primary. But now, trying to sue Pence for his residency issues, I don't want Mike Pence to get elected. I think he is bad. I think he is a bad candidate. He would be a bad governor. But he's a resident of the state. He has a home here. He goes and lives in Virginia to serve the state. It's in our Indiana Constitution. This kind of little petty stuff is so stupid. So who's the idiot? Please tell me you're going to say it's the Democrats and not Romney.
Well, I guess it's whichever one you want.
Okay, you're like, yeah, get him out of the. I'm like,
I think they're both idiots. I think Romney's an idiot for not reading the state rules and just giving out and bribing people to vote for him, and I think the Democrats are idiots for taking okay, we're gonna charge him with a felony so he can't run for president and Obama wins. Yeah,
so maddening. This is the kind of
waste. It's not
going
to happen. It's not gonna do anything.
It's all these little. This is why stupid people work in politics, because this is how they want to try and win elections, because they can't talk about policy.
Romney's response was, "Do you have any questions about jobs?"
Right. You have that's where I will give Romney points, is when all this stuff pops up, Romney's just like, I'm just not going to play your stupid game. He's actually trying to be an adult.
Kind of related. We talked about last time, the North Carolina guy got 41% against Obama, and he was a felon, and he was campaigning from prison, or he just got on the ballot from prison or something.
It was West Virginia, and he's in Texarkana, Texas, in prison.
Yes. So he ended up, his name was just on the ballot, and that alone got him 41%. And but that happened again. There were a couple other states the other day that had other Democrats running against Obama, and they got like 40%,
Kentucky
40-something percent.
Yeah, Kentucky has sort of a NOTA on the ballot, so you can vote none of the above.
Oh, yeah, you can vote.
And the NOTA got like 30% in the Democratic primary against Obama, and I think it was Arkansas. This guy who has run for office like 10 times on the Democratic ticket for all different kinds of offices. He made 3,000 phone calls on his personal cell phone and spent like $2,000 and just had some people pass out some flyers, and he got like 45%. So
and I was, of course, I read an article today, and they're talking about how because Kentucky voted no candidate for Democratic primary or something, it's because Kentucky is a bunch of racists.
Right. People in Arkansas and West Virginia are backwards.
They're just a bunch of racists.
But it really makes you think that if Hillary Clinton had challenged Barack Obama this year, she probably would have. She probably would have won.
I think
she would have destroyed him.
I mean, I think
she did him a huge favor.
Yes.
Huge favor. Because he would have had to spend his $1 billion campaign would have been even higher because he would have had to campaign against Hillary too.
In this book that's coming out that's #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, The Amateur, the author, Edward Klein, who has his own issues. I don't know how this guy gets his sources or if this is even true. But he says that two people who were in the room when Bill Clinton told Hillary and Chelsea that he had done a secret poll. This is while she's Secretary of State. He did a secret poll that said Hillary Clinton would win the Democratic primary overwhelmingly, and Hillary freaked out on him. She said, I'm the Secretary of State. I serve the President of the United States. What if this gets back to him? I'll be disloyal. And Clinton's like, there's no loyalty in politics. If you want loyalty, get a dog. You know, I mean, it's like, but he was like, you got to run.
Bill Clinton.
You got to run.
Bill Clinton.
On a side note, he last night got photographed with the up-and-coming two porn stars. One just won an AVN award, and it's all over Twitter and TMZ. And he's like, "Sure, young lady, I'll take a picture with you." And then, like the next day, he finds out it's a porn star. He's like, "Oops, my bad."
Oh my gosh!
It never fails, man.
He
the
just
guy
can't
just keeps
win.
coming up with better stuff, man. One gold nugget after another, man. God.
Yeah. So let's do, since we've missed last week's show, let's do another Idiot of the Week. Can you talk about? You mentioned it in the pre-show conversation about the show, which how we basically do the show is the 2 minutes before we go on air, we all look at each other and go, "What are we going to talk about?" The other Idiot of the Week. I have only heard of this story. I haven't investigated it.
Oh,
this.
The guy,
somehow Barack Obama spent less as president than any other president, despite the fact that from 1791 to Barack Obama's presidency, we racked up most of the debt under Reagan through Bush.
Well, Jackson,
and then Barack Obama adds 33% to the federal deficit in 4 years. What is this nincompoop saying that he spends less?
His argument is, and I totally forgot. I knew it right before the show, but I don't remember what it was.
Nincompoop of the week.
Nincompoop of the week.
But,
no more Idiot of the Week. You're a nincompoop.
His argument
don't be a nudnik.
His argument is such that budgets are passed the year before they are spent. Therefore, 2009 was actually passed in 2008 under Bush. So in order for 2009 spending to count for Obama, he would have had to have signed off on the budget, which he didn't. And
because we haven't had a budget for 3 years.
Immediately, there's some red flags go up. One, I don't know the accuracy of this, but from what I understand, Bush didn't even sign the 2008 budget. He didn't sign it. So,
of course not. Why put your name on that?
Yeah, so there was that.
Don't take credit for it, really.
Second, stimulus, which was $700-something billion, was signed and was written and passed under Obama and signed by him. It started after 2009. That's his baby. I'm pretty sure some of the TARP money was actually spent by Obama because it was discretionary. He may not have signed off on the actual apportionment of $700 billion, but nevertheless, he got to pick what it went to. So that counts for half, at least. Every single bit of spending in 2009 that especially if he has ended up being the one who actually signed the 2008 budget. Because if Bush didn't sign it and Obama did, then that is totally his baby. But the argument, the whole point is, while the numbers are so stupid, but the thing is there's a good point to be made in the fact that if they're trying to release papers, articles, and stuff that are saying that Obama was not the biggest spender in history, even though they're wrong, they're accepting the premise that big spending is bad. And if that's true, that's pretty crazy because this guy was obviously a Democrat. And
Obama's running a big government campaign.
But yeah, that's just it.
Look at Paul Krugman. Every time Paul Krugman's on TV with his new book, I want to scream. He's like, we need to spend $3 trillion more. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but the thing is like, if Obama's got... from what I understand...
I'm so angry today.
From what I understand, Jay Carney kind of parroted this article. And the only thing that I'm kind of wondering is like, his campaign... Obama's campaign's been moved forward, continue the course, blah, blah. The same old crap that every president running for re-election has. Yet his say the course is big government, and that's what everybody knows that he wants to do. He wants to spend more. But if he's coming out trying to say that if they're accepting the premise that big spending is bad, I mean, what does that say for his campaign? What's going to happen? I don't know. There might be a big message shift.
Poor Cory Booker, who I have more and more respect for every day, accidentally told the truth. What? How dare you walk that back? I mean, it just...
Yeah. He says something bad about attacking Bain Capital is a stupid move. You're crazy, rah, 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 rah.
If you've never seen the documentary, I think it's on Netflix, called Street Fight. I saw it before he was actually elected mayor. This is years ago. And it basically was his first run for mayor, and he fought against this corrupt politician in Newark. And it basically just talks about his grassroots campaign to oust this guy. He ended up not winning that race, but he did win the next time he ran 4 years later. So Street Fight, very good documentary on Netflix. Check that out. Did you know that the documentary by PBS, I think it's also on Netflix, For the People, was filmed in the Marion County Election Division?
No, I did not know.
Wow. Check that out. So stars my friend Robert Vane.
Did you know they're making another Great Gatsby?
I did.
I saw the preview there.
And it's a Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah, which is...
And Romeo and Juliet is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Well, Baz Luhrmann's kind of eccentric, so I'm kind of hesitant. But I'm excited. Same time, Anchorman 2 trailer got released the other day.
Never seen either of these movies.
It's my turn to start talking.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so what's coming up, guys?
Dark Knight Rises.
Right, what's coming up?
Out.
Pacers. Tonight. Watch the Pacer game. Heat. Pacers v. Heat. Gotta win tonight.
How do you think this is going to end?
I think we're going to win tonight because we're home. It all goes down to the last game. I think it's going to be awesome.
You think it's going to be 7?
Oh,
I'm hoping they've got to win tonight.
They have to win tonight
and get the momentum back.
Well, they have to.
Indy 500.
They lose their hell.
Indy 500 this weekend.
Who's your pick? Who's going to win the Indy 500?
Hinchcliffe.
You're picking a Canadian?
I'm picking
No
Hinchcliffe.
offense to James. He seems like a very nice man.
Or Hildebrand. Hildebrand is my favorite. But Hinchcliffe,
let me put this fact on the table. You think about it. 98% of Canadians live on the American border. Who do you think is going to win the...
what does that have to do with anything about the race?
That there is something going on, and I don't know what it is.
They're all going to just storm over here and take us?
And politely ask
We're all worried about the Mexican border, but it's really the Canadians.
On the American border. That's like, what, a million people?
30 million people are going to walk into Buffalo and go, can I have your guns, eh?
98% of Canada is just an ice ball.
Yeah, it's like 98%. It's like they're going to come over and take over America with their freaking hockey sticks.
I don't know what they're up to.
It's the best temperature, the southernmost border.
I'm not sure what they're up to, but something's going on.
Yeah, the 500. Do you guys picks?
I think that it is in my learned opinion. It's going to be Mr. Marco Andretti.
Oh, no way.
No way. I am not a...
No way.
I'm personally not a fan of Marco Andretti, but he puts together a great 500.
If I really had to pick, I just picked two people I liked. He Helio's going to get his 4th win this year.
Okay.
He's going to get his 4th win this year.
So
probably.
you're taking back.
No,
Hinchcliffe.
I'm rooting for those two.
Okay.
But Helio's probably going to win.
You think Helio's going to win? All right.
Yeah.
Do you follow racing at all, or do you read too much Austrian economics?
Creighton. You got to spend a weekend. You should go out to Carb Day and go to the Skinner concert.
I went to Carb Day last year. I have to work tomorrow.
but I have to finish reading Human Action.
Yes, you're going to read Human Action over go to Carb Day concert?
No, I went to Carb Day last year.
I found an annotated version of Human Action, and I'm really excited to read it this weekend.
They don't have one of those. But
they don't have one yet, but I'm working
We're
on
not
it.
on video, but
you know,
Spangle
funny.
pushed up his
for
glasses.
those who can't see, Chris
making fun
Spangle's
of
trying to make fun of me and doing the whole nerd push the glasses back up the nose thing, and I'm the only one in the room that doesn't wear glasses.
All right.
I know. How dare you be educated, idiot?
But other than that, just enjoy the summer, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll be
Not
back
much.
next week, right?
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, we won the we won the contest for best activism. So
you're gonna take
we're
your
gonna
$500 bucks.
we're
and
gonna
run.
take that money and we're gonna use it to start a video series to make more of those videos with different topics and
Very
stuff.
cool.
So
Anything
awesome.
Anything else, Creighton?
let's not lose this podcast, Spangle.
Yes.
So be careful
I'm
with
going
it.
to.
Because if we lose another one, I might kill myself.
Well, then, consider this gone. All right. You all have a good weekend.
Give that.
Yeah. Be cool.
Yeah, be cool.
Check.
Yeah, be cool.
Really talk. Like,
Hello.
like, really give me a check.
Hey there!
I'm not giving you a check because I don't have any money.
I'm going to do this whole podcast in a special voice.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes.
And with me today,
are calling.
Good afternoon. My name.
Creighton.
It's Weenie in the butt. Weenie in the butt. Weenie in the butt.
What?
You just got butt slam. Butt slam.
That's exactly.
Regardless of whether or not they wanted to, when they fired Tom Hanks because he was gay, they broke the law. What the hell's the matter with you?
Tom Hanks isn't gay.
Oh my God, it's from...
This podcast is produced by What is a Hoosier Productions.